For the channel's first 4-stroke build, I decided to go with the Lock and Load friction drive kit from BBR. The motor itself looks fine, and I'm sure it'll last a long time, but the hardware included with this kit is very disappointing and led to a lot of issues, as well as the lack of information. There's no instructions included with this kit. The website claims to have digital instructions, but I couldn't find a link and they didn't send one in an email. The only information I had to rely on was the video they uploaded years ago on the friction drive kit. But it doesn't help too much because in that video they bounce around different kits, different motors, and they're using a bike that's more suited to this kit. Unfortunately, when they built this kit, they did not intend it to be used with gears, as we chose a Kent Beach Cruiser with gears so it would be easier for her to pedal, but this has a wider axle and spreads out the mounting points. We'll cover that later. The idea behind the friction drive kit for us was that my girl could pick a woman's bike and be more suited to her needs, but unfortunately that didn't work out because I realized the motor sits so high on the back of the frame that on a woman's bike the gas tank would sit too low and not feed the carburetor. I emailed BBR asking them if it's a gravity-fed carburetor or if it could somehow pump its own fuel, which I highly doubt, and I never got a reply, which means they either don't know or they don't care. So mark 1 point for customer service, 2 points for poor quality of hardware, and 3 for the fact that our kit was missing hardware. The 4th point goes to no instructions, lackluster information. It's the lack of information that really gets to me. For instance, our first issue we ran into was with the shifter. This lock bolt that keeps the shifter in place gets in the way of this motor support, so we had to sacrifice it, which means that the shifter can migrate out of place and the derailleur will not function properly. A sacrifice we had to make, of course. And the second issue they don't tell you about is the rear brakes. This has rear brakes, not a coaster brake, and these get in the way. I was able to keep them on, but this mount's supposed to be centered, and in able to keep the rear brakes on the bike, I had to kind of off-center it a little bit. We were able to work around that. Moving on, our first issue with the hardware is this bell for the centrifugal clutch. It's not true. When you rotate the spindle, you can see it wobble. This causes it to rub on the clutch pads. As you'll find out later in the video, was our biggest issue. Assuming that you get lucky with the frame choice or you just already know which frame to use, this kit is a straightforward, simple, and fast installation. The big bonus is not having to deal with a rear sprocket, a chain, a tensioner, and adjusting a clutch. Big bonuses there. Unfortunately, having the poor quality of hardware, lack of knowledge, is just gonna hurt a lot of people like it did us. We simply didn't know about all the complications. So it's not as straightforward and easy as you think, unless you just get lucky. It's also important for you guys to know that I'm not at all hating on 4-strokes. I think this motor is fine, and we'll probably end up adapting it to a standard triangle mount later on. With the wider axle on this frame because of the gears, a lot of the complications that we dealt with could have been avoided had they simply supplied us with longer studs. This is one of the studs that goes in between the motor mount to help support it and space it. Well, it only comes with one size, and that size is intended for a single speed. If they came with 2 sizes, a longer one for gears, we would be in luck. But wait, there's more. The kill switch wires do not directly connect to the motor, so you have to cut and splice these. That's annoying. The throttle cable comes in way too long. With our adjustments all the way out, I can just barely keep the throttle cable into the mount on the motor. And the fuel line included with the kit is way too small. How much would it cost them to give us an extra foot? For real. What would this work with? The motor itself has about a dozen stickers on it, and not a single one of them tell you what kind of oil it takes or how much oil to add. I assumed maybe a half quart, but that was way too much. I'd also like to point out that my kit did not come with a fuel filter. I had to add my own. Due to the poorly machined bell housing rubbing on the clutch pads, it literally took me about a half an hour to start this motor. Come on. I've never had a motor that's been so difficult to start, ever. Even back in the 80s, well, Briggs & Stratton wasn't this hard to start. Didn't have a priming bulb, didn't have a choke. We got it to start up, but it smells awful. It smells really bad. I'm guessing it's that clutch. I don't know. That's not good. Okay, what I think is the problem is when I tighten this clamp to lock this down, it squeezes the shaft and the bearings together and it won't spin, because now that it's loose I can spin it. Not very well though. It's definitely still rubbing against the clutch, but it's not locked. So I'm going to try and put some nuts that were not supplied with the kit in here to prevent this from getting squeezed together when I lock this down. This kit's missing a lot of hardware, so, and of course there's no instructions, so yay. Alright, you can shut it off. So, adding these nuts to kind of separate these two plates, push them apart, took the stress off of the bearing. So now the bearings aren't what's holding it back. But unfortunately, this bell for the centrifugal clutch, I think it's called the bell, I don't know. It's still not true. So the clutch is still rubbing against it. The clutch should wear itself in, but that's not really how you want this to work, because it means that you're reducing the life of the clutch. Not a big deal, but the motor itself I think is fine. The clutch on the motor, the pads, I think those are fine too. It's just everything else past the motor in this kit is very disappointing. Anyways, let's adjust the idle. Gotta turn the idle up a little bit. This idle would probably be fine in most situations if the clutch wasn't rubbing. So there's that. For you guys over on the Discord server who might have heard about Henry's accident, he's healing up quick and should be running some trails in no time when the weather clears up. So I just thought you guys would like an update on him. Okay, turn on the choke. Maybe that one. Alright. Now give her a yank. Good hard yank. Just give it a good hard yank. Turn off the choke.
That's it?
That's it. That's all there is to it.
Badass.
Just let it warm up for maybe. Oh, yeah, it's still kind of cold. You might want to give it a little throttle while it's waiting. But just a little bit, because if you give too much, it'll start wanting to take off.
Yeah.
Just to warm it up. You can pedal to help it, but you don't have to. Really quiet.
I like it. Wanna ride it?
No. No, Henry. Try to avoid the heavy bumps. Try to avoid heavy bumps.
Alright, I didn't see that one.
So unfortunately, due to all the issues we had to deal with putting this build together, we didn't get much of a chance to take it on a nice long ride and really get a feel for how the bike will handle duration. So in next week's video, we're going to try and take it out on a nice long road and just see how it handles maybe a 20-mile trip. I'm really curious to see how well that rear tire holds up against the friction drive. As a gift to anybody who's made it this far in the video, we're having another Find the Googly-Eyed Piston giveaway. Somewhere in the video I have hidden a googly-eyed piston, and the first 2 people to find it and contact me on the Discord server, link down in the description, will win LA Hover Pedaling Suck stickers, 3 other random stickers, and 40 Smith & Wesson valve cap covers. The first place winner will also win some Super Clean provided from Super Clean themselves. Here's an idea of what you're looking for. You're looking for this little googly-eyed piston somewhere in the video. No, not right here, obviously. He's hidden. So, good luck!